So welcome to the fourth episode of FS Podcast. The topic of this podcast will be about habits and the study of habits. And with us today we have Marco. Marco, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And just so you viewers know, I don't think you know this face. Matty is also a part of FS Podcast because this will be the first time hosting with me. She'll be my partner in crime for this episode.
Yeah, I've been kind of behind the scenes lately, so yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to do this with you.
No, it's good to have you. And hey, Marco, so tell us more about yourself. How did you get to the study of habits? No, before I go, I'd just like to mention that Marco this afternoon will be doing a talk at TEDx FS, where he will be speaking to a large group, about the power of habits and the study of it.
So what is exactly science of
True,
habits?
absolutely right. Okay, I gotta say beforehand that my personal study is not necessarily habits itself.
Yes.
I have gotten into that topic to a certain extent because you asked me what I do. So I study neuroscience, cognitive neurobiology, meaning all the higher processes occurring in our brain, like decision making, how we plan into the future, the self, what we think we are, all those kind of processes I study. I'm doing my master's at the moment, finishing off in June, and part of my master is actually a lot of practical research, and at the moment I'm in Harvard in the lab of Professor Jeff Lichtman, who's working on the Connectome project, which is more on a cellular level. He's trying to restructure or reconstruct the brain of mice to really figure out on a cellular level what happens within the brain in very small part to better understand the brain. Because today, as I'm guessing a lot of people know, we know very, very little about the brain, how it actually works. It has billions, trillions of cells and connections in it. So we're hoping to get closer to that. And habits is just more of a personal interest to me because habits really shape your life. They make up a lot. I would say, or I know that half of all our behaviors every day are habits. And half of everything you do, that's crucial. That so makes up who you are, what you will be doing in the future. So when I got asked to do this talk, I thought about a topic, okay, what interests me, what is absolutely fundamentally important to push our boundaries, what the topic of the TED event actually is. I thought of habits. And I personally have really changed my habits, which I will also be talking about later. And it has changed completely who I am today and where I am. So
let's get right into it. So how did that happen?
My change of habits.
Yeah, like what happened? What type of person were you? Let's put it that way.
Okay.
The new Marco.
All right. So we got to go back to, I would say about 7 years ago. I had just finished high school and I was average, but I thought I had kind of figured out who I was, but I really hadn't. I was average at most things that I did, and I was more trying to be kind of a cool guy, and yeah. But
too cool for school, huh?
Exactly. Actually too cool for school. I had good grades, but high school is not really difficult, to be honest. Like, you can really
what do you call good grades?
I don't know, in Germany it's from 1 to 6, and I had a 2. It's considered good.
Yes.
But that's not difficult to get, really. You don't have to understand things to get a 2. It's really not.
You just pass the test.
Exactly, it's like passing all right. You kind of know what you do. And eventually I figured out that I really didn't know who I was, what I wanted to do with my life. And it took me about 2 years, right after high school, when I started realizing I really don't know what direction I want to go into, what makes me happy, who am I on a more deeper level. So eventually I found out about a university in Stellenbosch, in South Africa, Stellenbosch University, through a friend, and I really liked it. It was a great climate, it was a cool university. So I applied there to study and got accepted, and beginning of 2013 I moved to South Africa to do my full bachelor degree down there in human life science, which is it's actually a lot of medicine, it's anatomy, physiology, psychology. And in that time, I should mention that a big part of who I am today is also meditation, which one of my good friends, Nico, will be talking about later in the TED event.
Yes.
Meditation has really taught me or helped me to figure out who I was and what I want to do with my life. And then there were my studies, which I really started enjoying. So science is really who I am and what I will always be doing in my life to some extent.
Yes.
So that has brought me to a point where I started figuring out more and more what kind of person I wanted to be. I didn't want to be that cool guy, let's say, anymore, but I rather wanted to be a real guy who really knew what he was standing for and what he was doing in life, and that he was really enjoying what he was doing. So my habits slowly started changing. I didn't stop completely playing computer games. I didn't watch a lot of TV anymore. Very little partying, actually. And it was more of meditation, reading, listening to podcasts, studying, but also studying for fun. I really enjoyed what I was studying. And that has, up to today, made me quite happy. And it has really progressed over time. So it was like I got better and better through those habits. Every single day a little bit better, and it just adds up. It's like almost exponential growth, where you always start adding up more, and since you already have been getting so much better, you just keep on getting a little bit better, and it adds up over time, over years now. I mean, it's been 4 or 5 years now since I started studying down there, and it's been only getting better, to be honest. So,
what was kind of the trigger? You say you didn't want to be that guy anymore. You didn't want to be the cool guy anymore. You wanted to be a real good guy. But was there an event or something that happened that pushed you to it?
I have actually thought about this question a lot of times. What actually pushed me? And I got asked about it.
I mean,
many times.
maybe it's not one event. Maybe kind of a series of events that pushed you there.
Looking back at it, it was mostly to just be thrown into the cold water. The cold water being South Africa. I left home 10,000 kilometers away from home. I knew one person down there, and that was it. I didn't speak Afrikaans, which is the main language at the university. So I was left out a lot. I was by myself a lot. And I'm convinced still that you gotta be able to be alone. Exactly. Everyone needs to be able to be alone and just sit in silence and be content with who they are and whatever they might think. And that's what I learned more and more in that time, to be by myself, to go for walks by myself, to meditate, and accept also who I am. And yeah, it was tough at times. I felt very alone. I almost dropped out after second year because I was at points very unhappy. But overcoming that and sticking to it and persisting really got me to where I am today, and I'm very happy that I did not drop out.
It's easy to get distracted by so many things, and then there's no reflection time. I think with the meditation and being alone, you have to face yourself.
It's so interesting. It happened, like Matthew may know, because it happened, a similar thing happened to me here. Like I spent a Christmas away from
first
home.
Time, right?
No, it wasn't maybe his first Christmas away from home, yes.
Yeah.
But I was basically alone for Christmas and basically through January. And through that time, I felt like I had the time to figure myself out. So I could definitely relate. Getting back to you, Marco, you mentioned 2 things that I found interesting in the change of your decision making. One, you mentioned how it was so cool, like you were driven to be cool. So what does cool mean? It comes to the idea of coolness, because that coolness, when you're an adult, even that idea changes. It's cool to be a neuroscientist,
for some people.
For some people. So I'd just like to discuss that. And the second point you mentioned was purpose. Do you also believe that everyone has a purpose that they just need to realize? So 2 points.
2 points. Let me go backwards. Purpose. I don't think you're put on this planet to have a purpose. You don't have a purpose from when you were born and that's like, okay, that's it. Either you do this or you're purposeless. That's not, I believe that that's not how it goes. But you gotta really dig deep to find what your personal purpose is. And you can change that, but to a certain degree, you should know which direction you want to go into. There was a nice analogy when let's say your purpose is San Francisco, just on a map, for example, and you're in Boston, you should definitely head west to get close to your purpose. When you go over to China, you're not really getting to your purpose. But when you go west and you end up in Los Angeles or in Seattle, that doesn't matter. But you're going in the absolute right direction, and you're arriving at a point which is very close to whatever your purpose might is.
Yeah.
And to figure that out, what your San Francisco is deep. That's what meditation taught me. That's what going for walks taught me. That's what writing into journals taught me. So much about purpose. Trying to be a cool guy. Well, cool in high school means you don't really care about your grades, probably. Usually, you party a lot. You go out every weekend, and I think that's what most high schools have. That peer pressure. That's kind of be a little
Too much.
be a little against everything and don't really care about education. That's also a topic that I think about a lot, education in general, and it's cool to not like education, I think, mostly. I've even realized in university that people are trying to be cool and they wanted to pass the exams. They were cool when they started studying 2 days prior to the exam, and afterwards they said, oh, I passed it even though I didn't really study for it. And then they were like, yeah, like kind of, well, I really achieved something. And I was like, well, if I asked you in a week what was it about, you have no idea. How cool is that? And it's very difficult to go against the stream and to say, well, I do like studying. I do want to really learn what chemistry is about. But it's tough. I mean, in high school, there's always a group of cool guys that say, well, let's go party on the weekend. Why would you do homework? And I definitely went with the stream.
Yeah. No judgment. A lot of times in high school, I think I went with the stream too. So I know exactly what you mean. Maybe I was with the stream. I was the stream.
I was also.
You were more of a nerd in high school.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, it was 4 of us in class, so I mean, but I was probably the one making the most jokes.
Class clown.
No, but you mentioned through your experience in South Africa that you had. First, I'd like to ask you about your experience in South Africa. What were the additional challenges? But also, you mentioned the habits that caused this change with meditation, going on long walks, being alone. Those things. How do you think habits are ways in which people can change who they are? Some people say people can never change. Mm-hmm. What do habits affect? How do habits affect them?
Well, yeah, let's go backwards again. So let's first talk about the habits, and then we can talk about some challenges in South Africa.
These double questions, yeah.
Well, a quote that I'm also going to use in my talk, but since I think this podcast is going to come out after the talk, so I can use the quote now.
Safe to say.
Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So, habits make up what you do subconsciously, what you don't really have to be aware of anymore, and what our brain just kind of goes through the motion. And when what Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do, which I totally agree with. When every morning you wake up and you check your cell phone right away, and you are reactive instead of proactive, that makes you a certain person for the rest of your day. When you immediately go on your phone and you check Instagram or you check Snapchat and you reply to all those messages and you do that all the time, that will without a doubt determine who you are for the rest of your day. When instead you wake up in the morning, you leave your phone away for the first 2 hours. You meditate, you read a book, you have breakfast by yourself. You will be a completely different person for the rest of the day. I can say that with 100% certainty. That will happen. And I myself can tell whether a person is checking their phone all the time, even if they don't do it when I'm with them, or if it's a person that doesn't really care, that reads, that is in silence by themselves. You can tell by the character that person has. So,
What are the clues for you when you talk to a person, and what would be the kind of the clue for you that that's the guy that checked their Instagram profile and how much how much likes his selfies got?
One indicator is definitely awareness and attention that people pay to you. It's also, to a large degree, the spectrum of interests they have. Few people have really deep interests, and a lot of them. And some really do. Some are really interested in philosophy and some spirituality and some deep politics or whatever that might be. Usually those people, they are not so much on their phones or on social media, because that's so superficial, this social media layer that you walk on. But people that truly are interested in other topics, also art or culture or whatever, those people are usually not that social media driven. They don't really care that much about the messages they get or the likes they get, the comments they get. And yeah, the awareness part is, to me, you can tell when people think about their thinking and about who they are. At least I get the feeling that when you look someone in the eye and you talk to them, you realize, is he really here? Is he responding to what I say? Is he building on what I have just told him? Or is he just kind of in his own thought and is just thinking of, what am I going to say? When is my turn? When can I say something? Yes, I do think that you can notice it when you're aware yourself, obviously. That's kind of a prerequisite to get there. South Africa, challenges?
Challenges and yeah, the idea of people being able to change who they are.
South Africa had a lot of challenges to me. I mentioned the language barrier. I'm feeling left out because of that. Very far away from home. When we talk about more country-driven problems, let's put it that way, like inequality, racism, crime, I personally didn't experience it. Crime, not really. Once they broke into my apartment, but that was okay-ish. But I had a lot of friends, and they got all broken in. One of them got stabbed, not dead, but injured, seriously. You feel it. You always have to be very, very attentive when you go out. Look around, always. Don't go home by yourself in the evenings. All doors and all windows are always completely locked, and there's, like, how do you say, in front of it, they are completely closed
like shutters, like
exactly, shutters,
steel
exactly. In front of every window and every door, you've got to close them 3-4 times. You do realize that. I personally didn't experience any racism whatsoever. Never heard anything, never seen anything, but I did talk to Federer yesterday, and what she had told me was pretty serious, very severe, I thought. Inequality is heavy down there. You drive past all the slums when you go from Stellenbosch to Cape Town.
Yes.
They are massive. And then you get into Cape Town and there are those luxury apartments, and there's Camps Bay, Clifton, people are just on the beach having time of their life, all the models, and you just 10 minutes earlier you drove past 1 million people that have absolutely nothing.
Yes.
That's rough. I personally wouldn't live in South Africa because that would affect me all the time, because you know that you're part of it and that you're living in this inequality and this corrupted system. I wouldn't want to do that, because even when you're not really part of it, you are part of it.
Yes.
I couldn't.
It negatively affects you.
Yeah.
I know it from home, and just living in a space that's full of corruption and full of, that kind of energy, it still affects you and distracts you so much.
It does. It does. So it's a beautiful country. Absolutely super nice people. I got some great friends that I still have today. They get invited there by their families a lot. But it's a thrown away potential with that government at the moment. Needs to change. If people can change,
Yes.
I've actually had that discussion with a friend not too long ago, where we really had the question, can people change? And like at the core, can they? It's difficult. Yes, they can, if they truly, really, really want to. and if they can be honest with themselves. I think honesty is one of the most important things there are. Honesty with yourself and with others.
Yes.
And honesty also meaning that you know when you're actually doing something wrong. That also means being able to reflect on what you do. Another skill that meditation teaches you, to really go deep into yourself and to also reflect on your behaviors and see, well, it's really not good what I do every day. For example, that cell phone checking every morning, that's really not good for you. That's a fact. Or in the evenings, being on your laptop till late at night, till 12, watching stupid YouTube videos, whatever you might do, is not good for you. It's not good for who you are and who you will be the next day.
Go finish? Oh, sorry.
No, so to kind of sum it up, yes, I think people can change, but it's a very difficult process. It does take time, and you will most likely need help, whatever that might be. Let it be a very good friend who has changed, or let it be a guru or mentor in that respect. But then I think, yeah, you can make a lot of change, very fundamental, profound changes.
I do agree with you. I think when you come to the core of who people are, I think a lot of people assume you'll stay the same as you were in high school or in college based on your interactions with them. So that's the frame in which they see you.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how you change your actions towards people on a consistent basis, it definitely changes the way you interact with people, the way you grow. I think that's the thing. I think we constantly grow.
Okay.
But in relation, I want to talk about, it seems like you want to put down devices and put down some of these things which you think cater to people not spending enough time to themselves. I don't know if it's not, I don't know if, no, I wouldn't say extreme, but it's interesting. I think, do you see the benefits to how people can use these things till 12 and still be able to advance in their field of interest, their fields of study, and cater, or do you think sometimes just put that down, read a book on that field, and it will do you much more justice, do you much more benefit than actually staring at your phone or looking at your phone in like the New York Times as soon as you wake up?
Or also, like, just, I don't know, like, would you say that maybe sometimes distractions can do you good? For someone it's meditation, for the other person it's running, the third one's gonna climb an artificial wall. You know, people have different ways of having fun and having distraction. Do you still think that only focusing on things that make you grow makes sense in a day, or combination?
So Barbara Oakley is an engineer, and she did an online course called Learning How to Learn, which I did that, and I could really recommend it. It's pretty good. And
where did you do it?
Yeah, I did the course. It's on Coursera. It's for free. And she talks about the focused and the dispersed mind.
Okay.
We have to be able to switch between those. So what you asked, is it sometimes good to have a dispersed mind? Absolutely it is. Mm-hmm. It allows our mind to, in the background, just kind of switch off for a moment, just lay low. You can't drive 300 all the time and be in the zone and just study whatever you might have to study for 5 hours, and it doesn't work that way. You have to ups and downs, low, and you can train that, and then you can really go quickly into the focused mode when you need to, and then go out again and then relax. Even like going for a walk could also just be a dispersed mode where you are just letting your thoughts flow. Listen to music. Probably not listen to a podcast because that's again input. Mm-hmm. So just listen to music, talk to a friend, be on the phone, whatever you might want to do. And to your question, I don't think there's too much benefit to being on the phone till late or early in the mornings. Yes. Because you always strengthening that dispersed mode, that quick, that reactive, that on the phone being, and not this quiet time, not this reading, not this really being focused on a page and always having to your mind, like notifications, messages, like you gotta respond here, you should react, or commercials popping up all the time. No, I don't think it's good for us, because you are enhancing a certain certain mindset.
I do see that sometimes.
But just out of curiosity, do you use social media? And
I
if
do.
so, Which?
I do social media, a little bit of Instagram and WhatsApp, but that's basically it. I do have a Facebook account. I never post on it. Don't have Snapchat. Don't Twitter. Don't tweet. But I'm not saying that I'm a role model. I'm perfect with it. Not at all.
Of course.
Yes.
It's just curiosity.
But I'm well aware of the effects that it has on me.
No, I see you. I see your point. It's, sometimes, like, for instance, this last week I had like different papers to write, and I realized I'd just been checking Facebook,
Yeah,
and I'm trying right now to
procrastination
read an article that I have to write this paper for, and I'm like, I'm focus. I'm trying to get from that dispersed mind to that focused mind, and it wasn't clicking at times. It's just like, okay, let me go back to Facebook. So I do have that same problem that you mentioned.
And to that, quickly, it's not easy to go into the focus mode. Your mind will try to convince you that the dispersed mode makes more sense right now. And in that sense, you will be convinced that it's okay to check Facebook, because it's more difficult to go back to the paper and write it. It will take more effort and more willpower, let's call it that. But eventually you just gotta get over the first hump. And when you're in it, when you're in the focus mode, the first 5 minutes, but then it will go. So it's definitely not easy, but it's doable. And I'm convinced, to be successful in almost any field today, to really stand out, the focus mode is what separates you from other people. Carl Newport wrote the book Deep Work. Don't know.
Deep Work? No.
And he talks about exactly that. He talks about that people that are capable of really going focused work for a couple hours a day, they get much, much more done than people that work superficially in that dispersed mode for 10 hours a day. So the quality of the work is much, much better, and they work much more productive and efficient in less time, because they can really get to the point. But it's not easy. It's a skill, and it's more than ever, with all the distractions that we have, a crucial skill.
So so this brings me to, how do we grow this focus mode? Like, for you mentioned two points: not looking at social media when you wake up and not going to sleep, looking at YouTube videos. So how do you, for your schedule, how do you enhance what's your schedule through the week? How would you outline it?
Well, to practice something, you really got to do it. You got to practically do it. So I think to enhance a skill like the deep work skill, you really should get rid of all distractions that you have, all social media, all input, whatever you have around you, and read a book that's fairly difficult. It be a science book or politics or whatever, or some news article which is difficult. And you will get to a lot of points where you're like, it's very boring and I don't really understand this. But well, then take your time, think about it, make notes, really work on a difficult level where you're going to struggle a bit, and do it for a set amount of time. And then go out of it again, and then go into it again you do that a couple times every day, and you will get better at it, whatever that might be, a difficult book, or maybe it's an online course on Coursera, or listening to difficult podcasts. You can expose yourself to difficult topics, or topics that you would avoid because it's just complex. You can't be in the dispersed mode to really understand those things, and then you will get better at it. And I don't really practice it anymore, because I think I'm fairly good at going into that focus mode. I can read for a very long time, very focused if I want to, and I can listen to complex podcasts that you really have to listen to. But that's years of practice. And meditation is, I think, another skill, where you just literally sit in silence for 15 minutes, and that's it. You observe your thoughts. There is no distraction, there is no nothing, you sit quite still. And it's much more difficult than it sounds.
And how much do you think your background, your bachelor's and your master's help you with this, with dealing with this everyday life? Currently your research is very neuroscience, it's...
Not that much. I mean, I do understand probably the human behavior better, but that is also out of personal interest. I read a lot of articles on my own. I listen to a lot of podcasts on my own. I read books on my own that are not related to my studies. And yeah, I do expose myself to difficult topics because I find getting a little bit better every single day at whatever you might seek out to be better at, that's really such a nice purpose to have in life, to just get a bit better and share your knowledge with people, maybe make an impact on someone else, and then bring it out in the world. So anyone can do it, but you gotta wanna do it as well. And it definitely won't be easy at points. Definitely.
Just a question, maybe a bit personal, but the change that you did going from this too cool for school to being someone who's focused and who doesn't want any unnecessary distractions or shallow stuff, how did it affect your friendships, for example? Because so many times, you have people that just want to go for a cup of coffee and then it's like 30 minutes of a banter about basically nothing.
Yeah.
And I have difficulty sometimes sitting with a person and it just gets tiring after a while, but I can imagine for you, like just
very interesting question. Yes, that did filter out quite a bit. Let's put it that way.
Maybe someone is watching.
I know some people might hear this and they're like, oh wow, now I know why he doesn't come anymore.
They get closure.
But yes, I do get tired sometimes when I listen to certain conversations where I'm like, really? That's what we are talking about? And I do hear a lot of conversations around me when I just sit in a coffee place and I hear other people talk. And it's like, oh wow, did you hear about the new Stranger Things season? It's so fantastic. I binge watched it yesterday. And I just think, wow, really have nothing better to do than watch for 10 hours some season on Netflix. That can get very frustrating and so I think a bit sad when you think what people make with their lives. So yeah, it had a big impact on my friendships. But the ones that you have now, they are really real. And they can be so interesting. So by sheer coincidence, one of my good friends from Amsterdam, he's now at MIT in Boston. And he's also a super smart guy who's interested in developing self-development and meditation. I meet him many times during the week, and it's every single time I meet him, we have super interesting topics to talk about. It's never boring. We can even be in silence together, and it's just super nice. So the friendships that do remain, they are the ones where you can say, okay, those are really the real ones, and they have a lot of depth.
It's interesting. I want to ask that difference, that change between the cool guy versus the more focused guy. Do you think, because a lot of people like to talk about this peer pressure, but I think there's some things that come out of it, like better communication skills in a group, or do you think there are any traits in which you gained through that time period in your high school, such as being able to better relate to people, talk to them, like just those social traits or social behaviors that you gained? Is that one of the benefits, or is that something that it doesn't need to be done through peer pressure?
My dad used to say, my core competency is partying. And he was saying that actually in a positive way. Because it really used to be partying, but with partying he also meant socializing. Like you said, talking to people, being in a group together.
Yeah.
It probably did help me a little bit to be more outgoing until today still. But I think you can also learn stuff like that without having to go with the stream and go with the cool guys. Yeah, those things you can also learn on your own.
Is it?
I think you can. It might be a little more difficult later, but to be honest, to weighing out the positives and the negatives, where you might say, okay, when you're the cool kid in high school, later in life you might be a little better at socializing with other people. And that might only be on a superficial level then, because you are just superficial because you try to be cool. That doesn't weigh out later to really... Okay, I did make the change.
Yeah.
To be honest, I managed it somehow. But I don't think you can assume that it will happen to anyone, and everyone will change from the cool guy to someone who really kind of knows what he wants to do.
That was very interesting. Yes. I was defending the cool guys, but apparently you need to just plan those better habits throughout school and throughout while you're young.
Exactly. Maybe even better, you can probably be a cool guy, but still don't do all the stupid stuff that I did. Where you can be already a little more involved in science or mathematics or whatever really interests you, and still be super sociable and
Go to parties.
even go to parties, maybe not drink as much as I did, because I was, wow.
So yeah, let's hear some of these stupid stuff.
No, there are very many stupid drinking party stories, and I mean, school is great. It's free education. You can get so much out of it. Every single day you have people standing there, let's say, trying to explain something to you, some better, some not that great. But still, it's free education. And
in Germany.
In Germany, exactly, and that's so rare in the world. And it's, at some schools, great education. Not taking full advantage of that is sheer stupidity. That's the definition of stupidity to me, and I did that.
What advice would you give for those students in high school right now, going into college, or even students in college? Which routine should they follow?
Which routine?
What habits should they practice?
What habits should they practice? Well, they should really be aware of what I just said, that this is free education. I mean, even university in Germany is basically for free. State university.
Except this one.
Well, okay, we are sitting here at a very prestigious university. And that is a privilege that you have. So whatever you can take out of it, take it out. And even if basic business administration one-on-one is super boring, then try to make it more interesting. You can make everything interesting. History, which a lot of people say, wow, that's boring. Man, history can be interesting. Politics can be boring, but you can make it super fun. There is everything there is out there can be super interesting. Chemistry, I used to hate chemistry. At university, I had D biochemistry in my studies, and I found it so fascinating. So give your best at making things fun, and find how you can make it fun for yourself. That differs from person to person, but everything you can make interesting somehow. So do that, try that, give your best at making things interesting. It's probably not everything that is going to be super great, but
Builds you up, kind of.
yeah.
I had a teacher who said that once. What's his name? I can't remember his name, but it was he said, anything can be taught and you can learn anything. He said, once you make it interesting.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're saying. It's like, if you make it boring, you're going to belabor it, and it's going not to be, you're not going to get it done. But if you say, you make a system, make even a song, you start dancing to it, you'll learn it.
Write your own history about it, whatever that might be, but you can make it super fun. There's so great YouTube videos out there that teach stuff, and
But not late at night.
exactly, not after 11 and not before 9 o'clock in the morning.
So, you mentioned this going to sleep rather early, I would say. Do you think that a crucial thing is also having good sleep and having those 7-8 hours, or?
Absolutely. I think quality of sleep is crucial for learning, for rest, and general rest is very important. I think it's better to go to sleep fairly early. Some people say, okay, I'm a night owl, I only go to bed at 1, I can't sleep before that. I don't think that's true, just because your sleep-awake rhythm has been set to 1 o'clock because you've been doing it for 10 years maybe. You could change it if you keep on going to bed at 11. And then I'm also a strong believer that getting up early in the mornings is very beneficial. Like whatever you do in the mornings. You meditate, you read a book, you take time for yourself for a while, to self-develop, to read a difficult book, to journal every morning. There's a saying out there, you win the morning, you win the day. And I'm a believer of that. I personally have been getting up early for 5 years now, and part of why I am where I am.
How early are we talking about?
6.
6.
Fairly
Yeah, that's doable.
Okay.
At FS Podcast, we usually have a set of questions that we ask our guests. I'll let Matthias start with one of them.
So we thought about asking you maybe what is your favorite book and what is something that you would recommend to our viewers, a thing that
All right.
inspired you, a thing that you enjoyed reading.
Thing that inspired me. Yes. So one thing that has definitely inspired me, which I will partly talk about today in my talk, is the book The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, and it has a subtitle which I forgot, but he says something like skill is not talent but it's learned. And this guy is a researcher and he went to all the hotspots in the world where the most tennis pros come from in Russia and all the piano players come from in New York, and he went to all those hotspots where most of the superstars came from, and he analyzed all of those, and he came out with a very interesting conclusion, which I'm not going to name now. How you can get incredibly good at everything, and like you said, everyone can get very good at everything. So that book, The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, and I just finished a very interesting book which is called Surely You Are Joking, Mr. Feynman, by Richard Feynman, a Nobel Prize winning physicist who was such an interesting guy. Reading that book, it has nothing to do with physics basically,
Okay.
but the guy had a Nobel Prize and he was incredibly interesting and funny.
Okay. We will make sure to put them in a link below our podcast so it's easier to find.
Yeah, the first book that you mentioned, is that the book that references that once you've done an activity repetitively about, 20,000 times, you're able to be at a high skill level with anybody? Like you gain that skill level once you've done an activity over and over. That's what usually happens when they talk about NBA. When you change a shot or a basketball shot, once you've done that, practice that shot 20,000 times, your shot level, your skill level increases on a level of anyone else.
Yeah,
Because that practice, that repetitiveness.
it's also what they talk about from Michael Jordan. He was the one that stayed the latest in the gym in the evenings. He was there the earliest in the mornings, and he practiced free shots every single day.
Yeah. And they did like they would do like 10,000 shots a day, or if not
Also,
more.
yeah, Croatian player Dražen Petrovic, he was also NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Sadly,
always saying the latest. Every coach, every
He was a rising star in the NBA.
teammate of his, yeah.
Sadly, he got in a car accident or something. Tragic. Oh, quick. Another question I have for you: which person? Who would you say inspired you the most?
Who inspired me the most? Classic. I should probably name my parents because they have supported me in everything I do, and I'm only today where I am because of my parents. My dad, he's a professor for psychology, and they are very smart people, and it always helped me to, first of all, have their support. So also when I felt alone in South Africa, I could always call them, and that helped a lot. And I can always talk to them on a intellectually high level, which is also challenging, but has also kind of pushed me to be able to talk about that. To get there, to discuss difficult topics. Yeah. So it's a classic, but it's probably mostly my parents.
Does that turn off though? The intellectually level? Does it ever come down to emotional?
Well, they are both therapists also, so there is a lot of...
Psychoanalysis.
It's not so much psychoanalysis, it's more reasoning and talking about things more, and on a very rational level though, because I'm also personally a strong believer that emotions are false, they are untrue, they are no good for us in 95% of all situations. So letting emotions come into the game has rarely ever a beneficial effect to the situation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a clash for us.
So yes, on that, why do you feel it never? That's a big why. Why?
Well, if you can tell me a situation where you think emotion was really good that you had them, be my guest. And then I can also ask you, stepping back from those emotions, analyzing them, and then maybe questioning them in a moment might help in a lot of situations. Because you got to know that emotions come from the most basic part of our brains. They evolutionary, that was because there was a tiger coming around and we should be afraid and run away. And so fight and flight was basic human need back in the day. But today, what do you really need emotion for? Why couldn't you reason that you really like someone because they have done this and this for you? And if you feel it, I'm not saying it's not really there, but the question is, is it really that beneficial to you? Do you really need it? I highly doubt that. And it's not
It's situational too, because imagine it's you saving someone and that's a child, like a child who doesn't know how to swim jumped in the water. Sometimes you don't have that 5 second, you don't have that step away.
It's an instinct.
Yeah, it's an instinct. So sometimes
But
that emotion pushes you.
But is that an emotion? I would question that. That's just acting morally correct. Full stop. That has nothing to do with emotion.
But that's driven sometimes in the speed of the moment is driven by emotion.
Okay, well, if you have those moments, yes, but you could also argue that that's just morally the absolute correct thing to do. No questions asked. But there are so many situations that you get into where emotions just are so bad to act out of emotion.
I agree.
They override everything that's rational. Like now, when I'm going to give that talk, when I'm shit scared to go on stage, I'm not going to give a good talk. No doubt about that. But if I go on stage and I reason that being calm and giving the best talk that I can in that situation because I have prepared for this, that's going to most likely make me a better speaker than being super nervous and shaky and sweaty. And I'm not saying it's easy.
Yes.
But question your emotions.
I think that's a good point. No, that's a point that's very necessary because I think sometimes people react irrationally.
The last one?
Oh, the last one?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we thought of asking you if you had to pick a place to travel right now, where would you go?
If I had to pick a place to travel right now. What comes to mind to me is Copenhagen or Stockholm.
Why?
Scandinavia in general, maybe even Oslo, Norway. I've never been to Scandinavia in general, and I have heard great things about it. I would like to get to know the people better up there. I like that it's cold, I think. I wouldn't mind that. I heard it's beautiful landscape up there. I'd just like to go out in Stockholm, somewhere in Sweden, go to the rivers, the forest. Experience Scandinavia, get to know it up there. I mean, they're always on the list of happiest people in the world, and they have apparently the best economy and the most stable everything. Social lives, education is pretty good up there. So something must go right in those countries.
That's a scientist in you, trying to expect.
And something must, yeah. It seems like a very rational part of the world, right? Scandinavia.
It does. But I also think those people are pretty honest people. There's no, I mean, about the Americans, you can always say they're fairly superficial people. They'll always be nice. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? You always hear that.
With
I'm not.
Germans?
Yeah, some not. I'm not saying the people in Scandinavia won't answer, yeah, I'm great. Okay, well, never mind. But I think they are more honest with what's really going on in general in the world and in their lives. And when it's shitty, it's just a little shitty, but that's how it is.
Yes.
So, and I like honesty.
And with that, we'll be going to the section which we like to credit or highlight FS student achievement. Mm-hmm. And for this episode, we like to highlight the achievements of FS Music. They're doing a show on the 5th. Is it the 5th?
6th of December.
On the 6th of December.
And it's also with FS Charity, so there will be some charitable contribution to that. And yeah, 6th of December at campus.
On 6th of December. So this episode will not be coming out by the 6th of December, but still we'd like to highlight their achievements and we congratulate them on their work.
Yeah, and especially also to TEDx FS for giving us contacts to two speakers and just being supportive and for a great collaboration.
Yes, and to those, that's Leon, Sander, Maurice. Victoria is also a part of FS Podcast. And also, we'd like to tell you, for those, although the viewers or listeners who watch this, they may not be able to in person watch your TED Talks. You can watch his TED Talk on YouTube at TEDxFS.
Yeah, they will be uploaded later.
Yeah, it'll be uploaded later. And with that said, I'd just like to say FS Podcast, what we do is we discuss diverse topics, and every episode we invite an expert to talk about that subject, to talk about the challenges, the opportunities, so that students and young professionals don't hesitate to step in there. They can challenge themselves to learn and to find their focus place. And with that said, I'd like to thank you once again, Marco.
Thanks.
For
Thank
your
you so
time.
much for joining us.
Lovely conversation.
And Mattia.
Thanks.
No, with that said, thank you, viewers. If you would like to share comments on our discussion, please feel free to comment in the section below. But share if you enjoyed on YouTube, SoundCloud, and also on iTunes. Thank you very much for your time, and see you in the next episode.